Hey all, Simone here with a few insights and ideas. What is really important in terms of making your business grow and start scaling it. So one thing that we've been talking about this week is like, well, where do good leaders come from? Are they just born? And if that were true, there wouldn't be very many of us. So there's a few things that you can really do that will make sure that your leadership is much better than it would be otherwise. And I've heard a lot of people talk about meetings, and everybody loves to hate meetings. The saying is meetings suck, and it's true. There's a lot of time that gets wasted when the meetings aren't done right, and it is one of the most important communications tools that you have in your company. But they have to be done right. They have to be prepared. They have to be structured. They have to be led right. People have to be engaged, because otherwise it actually produces the opposite effect. So there was this great study that I was reading that said that when meetings aren't done right, when there are too many meetings and they're not effective, your team's IQ drops by 15 to 20%. So interesting. So here you are trying to do something good for them. You are, establishing communication and getting clarity. And if you're not doing it right, you're actually producing the opposite effect. Now, there's another thing about meetings that's really important, is to get the right people in the room. Because people need to have a very specific purpose for being in a meeting that's costing the company so much time and resources. Because you have to think about, it's like if it's an hour meeting, 10 people are there, that's 20 hours of productivity that you could be wasting if it doesn't have really good ROI. So one of the really important things to pay attention to is, are you putting the right people in the room? There's really only two reasons people should be in the meeting: if they're there to give something or receive something, or both. Now, sometimes it's a really good strategy to bring your talent, your high potential, your junior team leaders into a meeting. However, they have to be prepared right, because when somebody is too junior and they feel like they're not in the right place, that also can really mess with their confidence and their IQ drops. So you want to make sure that anybody who is in that meeting really is prepared well, has the right frame, understands what they're supposed to be doing in that meeting, what they're supposed to be taking away. Now, when people feel like their input during the meeting doesn't matter, same thing, their IQ drops. Or when they feel like their input is being criticized, same thing, their IQ drops. So you see, it's really important that when we get the right people in the room, that there's a structure for it and there's very clear takeaways for it, because otherwise it's a huge amount of time wasted. Now, however, when you do it right, it is an amazing platform to really get your team's creativity, their talent, and really use them for what they're there for, helping you run the company. Now, really important, you start your meetings on time. A lot of times when meetings aren't started on time, it actually diminishes the outcome. Productivity drops by about 30%. So you want to make sure that you start the meetings on time, that they're really about the synergy of the group. So it's great for brainstorming. It's great for getting ideas on the table. It's great for solving challenges. It's really about letting them come up with the right ideas. It's not about you going there and just talking. It's about challenging them to solve whatever challenges you're facing, come up with new ideas that they really need, so that you have a lot more diverse solutions for what's going on in your company. That's why you have a team. If it were all just about your ideas, well, you wouldn't need the team. Now, so that's everything in terms of your communication. Then the other thing we already kind of talked about is, well, having the right people in the room. That also means you need the right people on your team. And a lot of people make the assumption that just by hiring superstars, you're going to improve team morale and culture and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's an interesting statistic. When you hire superstars, yes, it brings team morale up by about 16%, and it saves the average company about $6,000 a year. But if you don't have the right people on your team, and there's kind of a toxic culture, or there's non-performers, that actually removing your non-performers, your toxic people, brings up team morale by about 61%, and it saves the average company about $13K a year. So think about what happens when you have non-performers, people who are kind of dead weight or who are riding other people's coattails. It is really frustrating for high performers to have to deal with them because they can't do their job right. So really important that you look at what is it costing you to keep the wrong people on the team. And for a lot of our clients, making that decision to let people go to improve the team DNA is a really tough one, because these are people they've worked with for a long time. Could be friends, could be family. They have made close relationships with them. So even if it's not working out, they're still holding on to those people. And it's one of the biggest costs that companies face, is holding on to the wrong people. So just think about it's causing you a lot of churn, a lot of turnover. Even your right people's productivity is going to drop. When you have great people, they will be influenced by the bad people. So the average of your team quality will go down by holding on to the people who are not right. And of course, you'll have more and more turnover, like I said, because your good people aren't going to tolerate having to deal with team members who are not holding up their end of the bargain. So, and then when you extrapolate that and you talk about keeping on a toxic leader, now your churn goes up to 60%. And you're going to have a lot of what is called regretted quits, as in you have great people who are quitting because they're not getting the leadership, they're not getting the support, they're not getting what they need to really deliver their best performance. So it's like, yes, you want great people, you want to recruit great people, but what's really important is to start with removing anybody who's a non-performer or who's even downright toxic. So it's always about ripping out the weeds before you plant the flowers. So we talked about how important it is to have the right communication structures, how important it is to have the right people in the room. And now the other thing when you have the right people in the room is you have to make sure that you promote them, or you promote the right people. Because especially today's generations, it's really important to people that they have a good growth plan, that they understand how they could be growing with the company, what the vision is, how they're going to fit into it, what their contribution is over the long term, what their opportunity and their possibilities, and also how they're going to be responsible for achieving that. They need to know, what's my contribution to the overall company value? Because especially when you're looking for people who are not just there for a paycheck, you want people who care, and you want people who are there for their significance, as in they matter, but also for their contribution, as in what they do matters. So those are two of the most important human needs. If you've studied human needs theory, that's like something that is really, really important to people. So when you talk about what people to promote or why, when you are promoting the right people, your productivity will go up by about 30%. Your turnover will go down by about 50%. And when you look at the overall team, when somebody gets promoted and they feel like this was the right person who got promoted, they feel like the integrity of the company, of the culture, is huge. And that's a really big one to perpetuate, because people need to feel like that somebody's value is being recognized, even if it's not their own in that case. So we want to make sure that you always look for who are the right people, who are your superstars, and you want to give them support and recognition, and you want to help them grow their careers, because that's how they show up for you. This really helps them increase their own value. And of course, that helps you increase their value in your company. So who's right? So part of what people really have to understand is their key performance indicators of their performance. How can I do things better? So as you're thinking about growing your people, you have to give them that clarity. They have to understand how to improve, what to do better so that they're more valuable. And they also have to understand how all the roles within the company fit together and how they cross collaborate. So it's not so much about, when you're looking at who to promote, it's not so much about who has the best qualifications. It's more who is right at their core, who is the right person with the right attitude, the right team fit, who's really bringing the value to the table. So it's not about promoting titles, it's about promoting the best person. And really, the person who wants the job is the right person versus the person who wants the right title. And a lot of times, that's kind of the trade-off that people are making. So we talked about making sure that you have the right communication structures, that you have the best people on your team, that you really improve the team DNA, that you know who the right people are to promote and why. And then, of course, as you're talking about growth, one of the most important tools, it's really one of your power tools to help people get better and better and better, is giving them feedback frequently. So one of my main sayings is, like, if something needs to be said, say it. So we always want to let people know when something is going great, as in give them acknowledgement, help them understand that what they're doing is the right thing, because not so much to inflate their ego, but to make sure that they're doing something right, because that also means they're going to be doing more of that. So whenever something is going great, point it out so people will do more of it. And when you have to have a tough conversation when something isn't going right, it's important that gets addressed as quickly as possible so people can improve this as quickly as possible. Of course, you always want to do this from a place of safety. You don't want to be angry. You don't already want to be kind of cooking. If something happens that really pisses you off, go take a walk, have a cup of tea, whatever it is, to get you right first, and then have that conversation. So when we talk about, and that's conflict, having that type of crucial conversation is tough for a lot of people. A lot of people are conflict avoiders. But if that's you, you have to make sure that you understand the cost that not addressing conflict has. So get really clear about the cost of not addressing it and the benefit that comes from addressing it as quickly as possible. So when we think about how to give somebody feedback, like a lot of people believe, or this is kind of the old teaching, that good old feedback sandwich is the best way to do that. So as in, you start with something positive, then you say whatever you really want to say in the middle, and then you follow up with something positive. Now, there's a lot of studies that say that that kind of approach is not effective for correction, because people kind of know that you're going to give them this compliment in the beginning because then something else is going to follow, and they don't really hear the end of it because they're just focused on what you said in the middle. So it actually diminishes their trust and their respect for you, because, in the back of their head, they're kind of going, well, this is all BS. So what has been found to be 40% more effective is to set the conversation up right. So one of my favorite ways of starting any sort of tough conversation is by reflecting and by letting them know why I'm having the conversation. So I always start by, hey, my positive intention for this conversation is blah, blah, blah. So you're letting them know, hey, I'm here actually to have a positive outcome, to have a direct conversation, but whatever is coming out is something that's going to help both you and I. And the next sentence for me is going to be, I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations and I know you can do this. So what that does is, for one, it lets them know they're part of a group. They're part of something, right? They're included. And then it also lets them know you have high standards, and they're proud of that. They're proud of being with something that in an organization that has high standards. And then it also lets them know that you believe in them. And so this setup really helps with lowering people's resistance to hearing the feedback. So for one thing, they're not feeling manipulated. They're not feeling like, hey, you just fed them a bunch of compliments because then you're going to bring in that banger and take them down. So they don't feel manipulated. When it's clear and direct, it creates a connection, it creates belonging, it creates trust. And like I said earlier, it creates respect because, hey, now they know when there's something to be said, you will say it to them. Nothing will ever come out of left field. They're never going to have to read between the lines. They're never going to feel like there's going to be talk that they don't hear about. They're always going to know that you're going to tell them what needs to be told, and you're going to do your best possible to resolve this in a positive way. So make sure that when you give people feedback, that you give it the right way so that they can actually hear it and appreciate it and utilize what you gave them. So, and a huge piece as a leader is also being a strong, confident leader, but admitting that you don't know it all. So you want to bring certainty and confidence to the table, but what people really highly value is when you also come to the table with humility, so that they can understand that you're human, that they need to help you when necessary, that you are relatable, and that you're also having things to overcome because they do. And when they see that you also do and that you're willing to admit to it, again, it makes you more relatable, and they know that you can't do it alone. And in that way, humility becomes your superpower because now they're much more willing to help and to jump in and put in the extra effort. So I hope this helps. Just think about, in terms of being a great leader, what's really important is having good communication structures, good meetings that are set up right, that you remove the toxic people and hire the superstars, that you promote the right people in the right way, and give them feedback in the way that they can digest, and then coming to the table with certainty and humility so that you are super relatable as a leader. So I hope this helped. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see you next time.